last night you were telling me some things that didn't get recorded yesterday, and that story about Gottlieb, about the guy that got locked in the truck. That's a pretty good story because it was a Gottlieb story.
Well, it's a great story.
And when was it?
It's while we were building Spirit of '76.
Oh,
the factory was
okay.
going like crazy. We were building
In my time
400 games a day and more, and the trucks were coming in and going out as fast as you could load them up. They'd be off, and we had a truck that was filled right to the brim, and it left the airspace at the top about maybe 20 inches or so at the top, and the shipping clerk wanted to know something about a game that was way in the back, so he sent one of his helpers up into the top of the truck, and he crawled all the way to the front of the truck. And by the time he got there, the shipping clerk had already figured out what he wanted to know, and so he gave a high sign to the truck driver, and the truck driver slammed the doors and got in his cab and took off. And a half hour later, or a few minutes later, why, the shipping clerk couldn't find his helper, and he finally realized he was in the truck. And so they called up the truck company, and they located him someplace and by radio or whatever, and they stopped the truck and let the guy out, and had to then deliver him back to the factory. And that was several hours later before he got back. And he
hope they bought him lunch.
From then on, they kept track of everybody. Let him get back into that truck. But
for cell phones, huh?
Yeah,
cell phones
I should have had a cell phone.
Yeah,
but, but there things were happening so fast. They were loading the truck as fast as they could.
Yeah.
And it just when you're building over 400 games a day, you're putting one out every minute.
You're
and a half
moving.
or so.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of games going in those trucks. They're moving fast.
That was fast.
Yeah.
I remember the single players were the ones that normally went out the fastest because they took the least amount of time to build and to test.
Well, it depends on your production rate.
Yeah,
If you had 4 players, sure it's more work, but you have more people.
Yeah.
So it balances out. But we never built single players at that rate.
Single players were about 150 a day, and that was fast.
Maybe about
normal.
right. But that the Spirit of '76, we were cranking them out almost one a minute.
They never ran a second shift.
Pardon?
We never ran a second shift for that.
Oh, well, we ran a second shift in the punch press department.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the punch
Making
press department ran a second shift, but nobody else. No one else.
Yeah.
No. But of course, we had Fargo, North Dakota.
Yeah.
Doing the cables. And we took, that gave us more space in the cable department.
Yeah.
And
that was one of my duties too. When we first got into Fargo, these cables would come in, and it was up to me to check them.
Were you ever in Fargo?
No. The cables would come in when we first started with them, And I remember the first ones that came in were just terrible. They were just the lacing was bad, and the wires weren't going in the right place, and
but they did pretty good after a while.
Yeah.
Then we bought the company,
Yeah, I remember that.
You never were up there.
I never was
a chance to go up there. You got to go to Fargo sometime in your lifetime.
Well, I went through it on the train one time, but I didn't get off. No, we didn't travel.
That's good.
We didn't travel. We weren't travelers. The only place I ever went, I think, for the company was when I went to help. I can't remember who it was. Set up Grab It. Remember I told you about the Grab It game, the pachinko-like game that we built, and he and I actually took it to a location.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, this was back after I had retired.
Yeah, I think so. You were right about that time because you had come back. One of your visits back, I showed you the game because you did see it, and you said, it's probably not gonna go, and you're right, But so you did see it. It was right around that time when you were still coming back.
That coming back was a joke.
Well, not to us. It was good to see you.
No, it was good to just talk to the guys. But as far as giving information to the company, they didn't want any. They didn't want any help.
Yeah.
And they didn't need any. They knew they were going to close it up eventually. It was pretty well set.
They thought they knew what they were doing.
Yeah. They thought they knew.
I don't want every game that was ever made. I just don't. I could see having a few more, but I don't really know what I'm after. I wanted representative game types.
Where do you have all your games?
We have like a game room.
You have a room that you keep them all in?
Yeah. But I wanted to watch my line because that was unusual. I wanted the ball where the ball goes around like Speedway, and I got a rainbow, and I have one bingo. I could see having another couple of bingos. I have one ball, and I have one pay table.
Do you ever play these games?
Sure.
Do you?
Yeah, I get in the mood and say, what do I feel like playing today? With or without flippers. Because except for Southpaw, my newest game is Watch My Line.
Oh.
That's my newest game.
All the rest are older.
Everything else, my oldest game, I have a Rockola World Series. That mechanical game.
Oh, yeah.
And then my oldest electrical game is your Flying High from Western. So that's where my collection starts. Yeah. Actually, I take that back. The newest game is that game I haven't restored, the Bally USA. It's like a Beach Queens.
You should have a Western baseball to go along with your Rockola.
Yeah, well, yeah.
That was a game.
That Rockola game is a genius system.
It is a genius thing. There's a couple of problems with it. Randy's has it too. Sometimes when the ball comes around to stop at home plate, it doesn't stop. It keeps going. The way the stops are designed in that thing, there's a radius on the inside, and sometimes that stop finger presses against that radius, and the base just goes on. You'd have to see it. It's kind of hard to explain, but it was
But it's strictly mechanical.
It's really clever. I mean, somebody put a lot of work into that. And then
that made a lot of money for them.
Yeah, they built that game for years. Yeah.
That's what inspired Johnson to make the Western baseball.
Uh-huh.
So he was going to make it. He couldn't make it like Rockola's game.
Yeah.
He didn't have the money to make it with. But
He probably didn't have anybody who could design it. Did they have
well,
anybody
you
there?
could copy it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, just copy the parts.
Which Jimmy wouldn't hesitate 1 minute. But
Yeah.
But he thought he could do it better electrically, and of course the rest is history.
Yeah.
But,
That's a nice game. It works,
Did you ever own a haunted house? Did you
No.
ever? You never have?
Nope, never had one.
So what did you, when they finally decided on a theme and then one finally popped up, what was your reaction? Were you...
I thought it was fine. I had no issue with it. I could see, the cobwebs and the basement up there and the spooky attic, and I thought it was fine. Rich Tracy was a good artist. He came up with a lot of good ideas. And then I think it was Craig Beerwaltis, I think is his last name, was doing sound. He's the one that helped do the speech for the games that talked. He was into that, and I think he did the music for it. And by that time it was out of my hands. I was done with it.
Where did you have any concept at all while you were designing it of maybe a theme that might be, or what?
Nope.
Just the idea of 3 layers. And...
Yeah, and the trap door under the turnaround, and had a lot of new gimmicks on it.
So for the record, we're recording. You basically, the idea that the game would be a spooky mansion and have the spooky, music and whatnot, that just was nothing to do with you.
Nope, I had no idea, and I didn't care because I knew it. I think as far as playability, it probably doesn't matter that much. You want to make a nice theme that will bring people over to the game, but beyond that, the features sell the game.
Yeah.
The only game I ever had a theme in mind for was Blue Note. We talked about that before. I had a musical theme, and they kept it. I'm surprised they kept that. I painted my playfield, do, re, mi, and everything, and they kept the theme, so that worked out all right. But other than that, no. I made a game one time with trapped balls in a U-shaped path, and you would hit the ball, and the ball would go around. We did that.
Yeah.
Although that was an old feature,
Yeah, I had one.
Williams had that too,
yeah.
And I put it up in the corner, way up. And this was in the solid state days, so I had to find out some way to program that thing so it would be reliable. So the balls wouldn't bounce and score twice and everything. And I pretty much got it. And I called it the ball shuttle. And Eddie said that would be a great theme because the space shuttle was current. We should make a game around the space shuttle, and that would be the shuttle feature, And I hadn't thought of that, and that was Eddie's idea, and game never got built again, never got made. Yeah.
What, you did Volcano?
Mm-hmm.
The fellow we're going to visit, he has a volcano.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So I'll get a picture of you with that so we can send it to John.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
That's
yeah.
What can you tell us about that game?
Well, that game had what I called at the time the undergrad, the subway unit. Again, I finally found a way to drop a ball here and kick it out down here. Finally found a way to do it. Been trying to do that since I've been at Gottlieb. And I used a ball return. You know, our ball return, the way it had that hump in it, I just straightened out the hump, mounted it underneath, brought it up, secured it to the top of the playfield. Worked beautifully. And what I also liked about it, I did not put, it has a flap over it now. The final game had like a pitching flap over it. Bad idea, because it stops the ball. It interferes with the ball coming out sometimes. I wanted that thing open, because if you got the shot right, you could shoot the ball down into it.
Oh.
It was like a sock in the throat. It was a great shot, you know, and then the ball would just come back out. So up at the top of the playfield, there were two open holes, or two drop holes, you know, with the hole flaps on them. And so, you know, one, they'd alternate high score or something, and you'd get in there, and you would roll to the kicker, and the kicker would kick it out. So you could either get in from the holes, or you could do a direct shot down the throat of this thing. And I always thought that was a good feature. I don't know why they put that flap on it. I thought that was a bad idea. But again, by then, it was in somebody else's hands. You know.
So you suffered the indignity of having some of your games modified.
Slightly, yeah. But I had no theme for that. I had no idea, you know, what they were going to do with that.
Can you think of another game that maybe in production that they removed some feature you had put on it? Or?
Actually, Blue Note. When I started with the Blue Note, with the Do Re Mi thing, I added a push button on the front of the cabinet, and there's 3 rollovers at the top, and I put on like a 5,000 point hat above each rollover. And what you were supposed to do is, when the ball's at the shooter, you can press that button and spot what rollover you're going to shoot for. There's 3 arrows. So you could call your shot, in effect, because you like to do that. Judd liked to do that. Call your shot, you know, before you thought, well, now the player can call his shot and shoot for that high score rollover. As soon as the ball was shot, it went through the gate, hit a rollover, disconnected the button, and you know, if he didn't get the shot, that arrow would go off, and that was it now until the next ball, till the ball went back to the shooter. So it was only on the shot you could do it. And you know, you guys decided it's either too gambling-ish, or they don't want to add a button to the cabinet or something, you know. So they took that feature out. But then the rest of the game survived. You know.
Well, do you remember what Krynski thought of that?
No, I don't remember.
Yeah.
No.
Of course, now the modern games, a lot of them have the skill shot, or you hit your flipper to choose which lane it's going to go.
Yeah,
over.
it was like that. Yeah. So, and then the other one, another one that I thought was pretty good was Force 2, because the multiple ball thing was starting to come in. Bally had made some games with that, and let's see if we can do something with that, Force 2. And all I did was put a kick hole right just inside the card holder at the shooter. So the out hole would kick over to the kick hole, and the ball would stay there. So there's a ball in the out hole, a ball in the kicker. So when you start the game, the ball just kicks over to the shooter, the ball in the out hole comes over here as a reserve. And then when you release that ball, this ball comes over to the shooter, and you shoot, and you got 2 balls on the playfield. And that worked out pretty well. That wasn't too difficult to manage, because you had to manage like for tilts and anti-cheat and things like that. You had to know where the balls were at all times, you know. And that wasn't too tough to do in solid state. And that game they built, but they didn't keep the kick hole. Doc didn't think that was reliable. He invented some kind of little you know, flip action thing that would flip the ball over. It was probably more reliable in the end, you know. But
Doc was pretty good.
He was good.
He was
designed a lot of good stuff.
You have to rely on Doc. If he says something, it's pretty reliable.
He designed the dropping coils for the drop targets. Remember, we had those. You could drop each drop target individually, and he made these little pancake coils. Remember that? And wire forms.
No.
Yeah, it fit between the underside of the playfield and the top of the bank. It was a regular bank that was modified, and there was this little arm.
That was after my time then.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And Eddie actually started that. It was on his game, and he and Doc worked together. And these little coils were about 1/8 of an inch tall, and this little armature and a wire form, and this thing would pull in and just kick the target, and the target would drop. That way, it was part of memory, because we were trying to get memory in the game. You know, so the you know, you play, and then the ball runs out. Now it's my turn, and the drop targets would drop the way they were when my ball ran out. So the drop targets would
Everything
remember.
returned back to
Yeah, the way it was.
it's-
So you had to have a dropping coil on each
yeah.
drop target for that to work, and that was Eddie's idea. Yeah. Tell him the story, because we were talking about gambling before, about the when you guys were running with the
The
game.
backlash?
Yeah.
We had to take a game down. One of the it was a gambling game, I guess. Or no, it was,
It was a
one of
bingo.
our
I thought-
regular games.
Okay,
Yeah.
I thought it was a bingo, but
No, I think it was one of our regular games. We
Okay.
were trying to prove something, and we had to take it down to City Hall,
yeah.
and we were going to show it to a judge down there, I guess it was, and
You and
was it
Moravec.
Moravec and I?
Yeah.
Yeah, Moravec and I were assigned the job of taking that down there, and there was no place to park. And so we parked in some kind of a garage some block away from City Hall, and we had a hand truck, and we go tearing down the street. We're late trying to get to see this judge, and the darn light box fell off and broke the glass, and right in the middle of Chicago, right at City Hall, and it was a mess. Well, I don't know how we got out of that mess. I can't remember.
Not too
what happened.
embarrassing, huh?
We had to clean it all up. You
Was
know.
that one of your games? One of your flipper games?
No, I don't know what game it was. It was a Gottlieb game. We didn't pay much attention to which game was which.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it was a Krynski game. Must have
No,
been.
yeah.
Must have been, because I wasn't. I don't think I was designing at the time. I was.
Past designing, right? You were already.
Yeah. So it was a Krynski game. I don't know which one it was.
Dave really had a thing about gambling, though. He just.
Well,
There was another
in
story.
later years.
Yeah, yeah. There was a story that I've heard several times. I don't know who first told it to me, but another court case, and they wanted to have a bingo back glass at the courthouse to show the difference between a flipper back glass and a bingo back glass. And I guess we had one. We had a couple of bingo back glasses, and it got probably for that purpose, for court cases. And the guy goes to take the glass down to the courthouse, and Dave says, "No, wait a minute. You can't take that glass out the front door. You can't carry that bingo glass out the front door, because somebody driving by
Might see it.
might see it and say, 'Oh, that place makes bingo games.'"
Oh,
yeah,
my.
yeah. This would have been on Costner, of course, the Costner years probably. And so he made that guy drive all the way to the back dock and load it in his car from the back
No,
dock.
I don't recall that either.
Yeah.
But a lot of strange things happened. But on Costner Avenue, we had the front loading dock and the back loading dock,
Ah,
and everything came in the back loading dock and went out the front.
yeah, okay.
And that's where my design room was, right alongside of that dock area, and I could look out the window and see them loading up those trucks,
Yeah,
which is always a pleasure.
sure.
Yeah. It gave you a lift.
Mhm.
That when they're going hustling and the game's going out and the trucks are coming in and empty and going out full, it gives you a real lift. And
Yeah.
you realize that we are making money and we are paying a lot of people. We have big crew, and you're not only giving a living to your employees, but you're giving a living to other employees at the electrical windings and at the cabinet company.
Yeah.
Everyone is, it goes down the line and you don't realize how many people are
Wire companies.
are living off of what you're producing.
Yeah. And the distributors.
Distributors.
And then the operators.
And the operators
the
are all
route people.
depending on Gottlieb to make a game, and that makes money. And so.
Our distributors were like family members, weren't they?
Oh,
The
yeah.
old line ones, we had.
They were, yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about that last night. That Portal and Banner and
Oh,
Mondial and Trimount and what was the one Central in Nebraska? Jaime Zarinsky.
Jaime
Jaime,
Zarinsky.
yeah, or that was Central Distributing, I think. Yeah.
Jaime Zarinsky. You know the story about Eddie Zarinsky.
Well, Jaime, when he became a politician, right?
No, Eddie became the politician.
Oh,
And
okay.
he became a United States Senator.
That's it. That's it.
And he was a senator and at the time I retired. And I think the first year I was retired, I went to Washington and Eddie gave me a tour around
Oh my
the
gosh,
Capitol.
you
and
saw
a
it.
personal tour of
Ah.
everything in this. Eddie, you know, I knew Eddie when he was probably 10, 12 years old.
Uh-huh.
And he and Alvin were pals, and whenever they come to town, why, they would hang around, and especially on a Saturday, the kids would be there, you know, Alvin and Eddie, and they'd run around, they'd come in and kid around with me, and I'd fool around with them, and he'd show them things, you know.
Yeah.
Play around with them.
Yeah.
And so I got to know Eddie very well, and then when he became a senator, that was just too much, you know. It was just to actually know a senator went from a small age to manhood.
Now, would his career have overlapped Homer Capehart's?
No, I think Homer Capehart by that time was gone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, Homer Capehart was, I don't think I ever told you the story, but when the war was over, and I came back on leave,
Mm-hmm.
and I was still in the service, and of course there were millions of men in the service, and they were letting us go, dropping the soldiers out whenever they could, but slowly. And I came back and I went in to see Dave, and Capehart was there.
Ah.
And so we got talking, and I knew Capehart fairly well, you know, not on a first name basis or anything, but he knew me, and so Dave said, "Well, when are you coming back, Wayne?" And I said, "Well, I don't know, you know, I'm in the Army, and they're pretty slow letting us out, but I'll come back when I can get out." And old Capehart, he's sitting there looking at it, and Dave looks at him, and he looks at Dave, and nothing was said, nothing. A week later, I was out of the Army. and everybody in our outfit, you know, said, "How the heck did you get out of the Army? Nobody else gets out." And of course, now I'm sure that Homer had nothing to do with that.
Oh, of course not.
No.
No.
Nothing. That just happenstance, but.
He made great record changers. I used
Yes,
to have
yeah.
one. Remember, you saw it at my
Yeah.
house one time. The
Yeah.
turnover machine.
Homer was a great guy.
He was president of Wurlitzer for a while. He was really in the business.
Yeah. He was a big cigar smoker. Him and Dave, and they'd sit in that office and puff those cigars. And when you open the door, you know, could hardly see him for the amount of smoke in the room.
Yeah.
But they were good friends, and Capehart came there to our factory many, many times.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, Capehart put up the bill in Congress to open up the Air Force Academy.
What do you mean open it up?
Well, to make it.
To build it. Huh?
To build it, yeah. The Air Force Academy, and then years later, my granddaughter graduated from the Air Force
there you
Academy.
go.
And I told her about Capehart, and a man I know actually put in the bill that built the Air Force Academy.
Yeah.
So there was a little tie in there.
No, they were so close. He was such good friends with Dave. I'm surprised he didn't get into the business at all. He never handled games, never distributed, right? Capehart never had anything to do with games.
No.
Yeah.
He was a manufacturer.
Yeah.
But he ran Rockola, and that, you know. But he was a politician.
Yeah, I guess that's probably he really wanted to
He
do
really
eventually.
was a politician.
Did you ever know David Rockola?
No.
Okay. I just wondered.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you know, we had the 4-player, the 2-player, and the single player, and the Attaballs, and the distributors, they always objected to the price of the 4-player, and so
of course.
Most places in this country, they like the 2-player because of the price.
Yeah.
But we were pushing the 4-player and one thing or another, and I got thinking one day, what percentage of the people play on that game singly over 2-player, 3-player, 4-player? So I metered the game so that I could tell how many people played at one time, and how many times it was played with 2 people, and how many times with 3 people.
Did you put in 4 meters?
And 4
meters.
4
okay.
meters.
Yeah.
And sent it out on location, and we had it out several months.
Do you remember where it went?
No,
which distributor it went? Yeah, okay.
I don't pay any attention to that.
Yeah.
Know? So then the game came back. I was flabbergasted that nobody played the 4th player.
Huh.
Percentage-wise, it was nothing.
Yeah.
And the 3rd player very seldom. Two players, fairly often, but mainly the one player. It's still pinball is a one-player game, really.
Yeah.
And it comes right down to it, and I don't know. I always liked one player, but
Well, they're different games.
yeah, it's a different style game, but that was surprising to me. I couldn't. I thought the four-player was the game when I first made it. I thought, well, if you could get four guys playing a game, then one of them's going to win a free game.
Yeah.
Chances are.
Yeah.
Maybe two, but one of them for sure is going to win a free game. And if you get one out of four guys to win a free game, he's going to entice the other three guys to hang in there with me, and we'll. But it didn't work out that way. But of course, you don't tell your distributors this.
Right.
You don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
Because a four-player it's a market.
Yeah.
And why not? Even if they don't use the last player, it don't matter to us, and it don't matter to the distributor. Really.
Right.
But,
well, I remember for a while too that there was the feeling that, like in a multiple player game, if you win a replay, that replay belongs to that player. And so on the next game, if you drop a coin, the replay would not subtract. So that you'd say, I press the replay button. It's my game. I press the replay button.
Yeah.
But if you put in a coin to start the new game, it won't reset the replay unit won't subtract.
Well, that's right. Because you didn't press the button.
Right. Yeah. So it was like a possessive thing, because in
sure.
most games, anytime the game resets, the replay unit subtracts. No matter.
Yeah. If the third player played, it's his free game.
It's his game. Yeah. That was about the time I think that we were trying plexiglass, back glasses.
Well, we used a lot of that for overseas shipment, plexiglass.
Well, there was some here too, I think. My understanding was because, of course, they didn't break. There was no breakage. There was no tempered glass at the time. Yeah. But the thing about the replay, I remember you telling me about that the plexiglass was flexible enough that if you got a replay, it took two people to do this. You could push against the plexiglass against the replay drum, because the glass isn't going to break. You could push it against the replay drum and say, okay, start the game. The game starts, you take your thumb off the glass, the replay unit didn't subtract.
No, you couldn't do that.
I thought you could do that.
No, there's a metal shield in front of the wheel.
Well, I thought that was where the metal shield came from. And the units before that didn't have that.
No, I think it was always there because it showed you the number. It didn't let you see above and below it. It pointed out the number of the free blaze unit coming.
Yeah.
No, you couldn't touch that. But
how come we went away from the plexiglass? Seemed like the answer at the time, didn't it?
Well, we used a lot of plexiglass for Europe because of shipping over there, breakage and so forth. Yeah. But we stayed with glass mainly in this country. For all games.
It was cheaper, right?
Glass, glass is cheaper. Sure. Plexiglass is expensive.
When did tempered glass come in then?
On the playboard?
No, tempered. Well, both.
Yeah.
Back glasses were tempered.
Well, you heard about the playboard glass, how it got to be tempered glass. Sure, you heard that story.
About Betty?
About Betty going through the glass. Yeah. She still got the scar which she proudly shows. Yeah. That happened in my basement.
I got in trouble with the tempered glass when I hadn't been at Gottlieb that long. We'd have a game in the game room, a new game, and remember we'd lay out the play fields with different colors. And Judd and Bob would come in and say, I want this set of plastics, and this play field. And there wasn't much variation. I mean, believe me, the artwork was so simple and just so, art student 101, I always thought. But anyway, I was standing between the games. Like the light boxes were here, and I was helping. I was sort of switching back glasses and switching things for Judd, and everybody was standing there. And I had a glass in my hand, and I went to move it, and I banged it against the side of a cabinet.
And broke?
It just disappeared. It just exploded. I'm standing here. What happened? I was horrified. Everybody's standing there. Judd. Everybody's there. Oh,
you must have been mortified.
I was mortified. And they said, "Oh, don't worry about it." But they all left, and I went to get the vacuum cleaner. And when I came back in, it was still breaking. It was
Still
it
popping.
sounded like Rice Krispie. It was crackling all over the room because of course the glass was all over the
It lays on
room.
the floor and just crackles.
With stress relieves, you know. Yeah.
It's amazing.
That's the only time I ever broke a back glass in front of everybody.
I think it was a good thing to do to change
yeah.
Because otherwise there surely was going to happen to other people, and we'd be sued for who knows what.
Was it you or Moravec or somebody who told me that during those days when you were testing the tempered glass, you were throwing things at the back glass. You were throwing Coke bottles and hammers and things at the back glass to see if you could get it to break.
No,
and it never would.
I don't remember that, but we probably did.
Yeah.
Tell us about sample games and putting games on location before they really ran the assembly line.
Oh, well, we put out test games on every number, every game we built. But we did it for several reasons. First of all, to test out our circuitry and our cables and our orders for the different lines, and also to get the games in the field and let some players play it to see how they like the game and whether they would shun away from it. And it also gave the distributor an idea of how good the game is and how many games he should order. If he's got a game out on location that makes more money than any other game, and he would start placing orders for that game, and our production numbers would go up. And so we ran samples in every game. We started out with only maybe a few, maybe half a dozen or maybe 10. But as the years went on, there was more demand from different distributors for more games to give to more operators to try out. So we got up to maybe 100, 125 games, sample games. And that was always a problem to run them down the line, because chances were there was some kind of an error would creep in someplace along the line, and these games were put in right along with a regular run. So we'd be having the regular run coming down the line, and then this game would start out and come in the line, and
it was disruptive, huh?
Yeah, interrupt things for a little bit, and heaven help you if you had an error in there. Because we all worked for the engineers. We all went out on the line and worked and
get those games ready.
Straighten the mess out.
Can you confirm that they all, or 99%, were stamped with an S then, with the 0?
Absolutely, yeah. The sample games all had an S on the front.
Yeah.
And did you expect to get that game back at
No.
any time?
No.
That was a real game, so that just went on location.
It was a real game.
Yeah.
That was. And in fact, you'll find a lot of games on the street like that.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Would they be worth any more money to a collector, a sample game?
People claim they are.
I can't answer that because
sure.
Because it's a sample. It means it's a very early game. You know.
Do they pay attention to the serial number on the front?
Yeah, because there's some games that helps confirm, like, how many are left in the world.
Everybody's younger than I am. But that's
all right,
that's all right.
Maybe you can ask the leading question or something about that.
About you were mentioning about Judd making it when Columbia was buying the company, and that was in the works. This was in the mid '70s, and apparently Judd had to make the presentation to the board of directors.
Judd had to go out to Columbia Pictures and give a speech to the board of directors and boost our company and tell them how great we were and all that kind of stuff. And Judd was not a speaker. He was not giving a speech was very difficult for him, and it is for a lot of people.
Sure.
I think it is for me too. I'm not a speaker. I wouldn't give a speech, but Judd wrote the speech out, and then he had to go out to California, and he got ready to go, and he went out there, and he got to the O'Hare Airport, and got checked in, and was all set to go, and so he had a little time, and he went over to the bar to have a drink, and he sat at the bar, and he laid his speech down on the bar top, and probably had one too many, I don't know, because Judd wasn't a drinker by a long shot, and I don't ever remember seeing him take a drink, but anyway, he had a drink, and then he went and got on the airplane, and they took off for Los Angeles, and when he got in the plane, he realized all of a sudden that he didn't have the speech. Where's the speech?
Oh, God.
And then he remembered it was back on the bar, left it on the bar. And so when he got, of course, he didn't have a phone that you could call while you were in the air at that time. And by the time he got to Los Angeles, he ran for the phone and he called me, go to the airport and see if you can find my speech and put it on a plane and send it out to me so I can give it tomorrow morning. And this, of course, is 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. And so I got in the car and drove down the airport and went up there to the bar that he had described to me and asked the bartender if he had seen a speech that somebody had left on the bar. And he said, yeah, and he pulls off from under the bar and gave me the speech. And
Lucky.
yeah, lucky, I tell you, that somebody didn't take it. You know,
Or I just threw it out.
yeah, or just threw it in the garbage or something. Who knew where but anyway, I went down to the end of the ramp to the airplanes were loading up. Another airplane was taking off for Los Angeles. So I gave it to the pilot. And I said, now, there's going to be a little short guy going to come up and ask you for that when you get to California. And I handed it to him, you know, and I said, please, this is very important. It's a matter of life or death and all that kind of story I gave him. And so he did. And he flew out. They flew out to California, and the pilot hands this speech back to Judd. And I said, so then Judd called me, of course, and told me that he got the speech. And I said, well, now you're going to have to give the speech. You thought you were going to get away without doing it, but now you're going to have to do it. And
you should have gotten a bonus for that.
oh, no,
What are the odds of something like that working? You know.
Oh, you know, we were just friends. And you do things for people.
Well, I mean, the fact that it worked, you were able to give it to the
Yeah,
pilot, and I mean, the odds of that.
Today you could never do a thing
You
like
couldn't
that.
do
You
that.
can't even get near the aircraft
Nope.
today.
Well, today you'd fax it to him.
Pardon?
You'd just fax it to him. You'd scan it to him. It'd come right to his hotel room.
Yeah,
You
sure.
know? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
But times have changed, and for the better or worse, I'm not sure.
Yeah. No, he asked me if I was aware when I was in the pre-Gottlieb years if I knew about the sense of collectability, and yeah, I had a small collection of games at the time, mostly stuff that I had just gotten real cheap or whatever, and that's where I learned to work on games and learn circuitry, and I almost never had a schematic. You know, the old games, you know, you couldn't find schematics for them. I had a schematic for a shuffle alley. That was about the only thing I ever had. And I started to, you'd go into places, there were like an antique store or something that had 4 or 5 games in it, and said, well, I'm a collector. And okay, well, I couldn't afford anything he had, but I would see that there's other people doing this, other people interested. In later years, well, early collecting years, but years after this, I found that there was collectors that had never taken a game apart. They would say, you know, they got 4 or 5 games, but there's no way I can remove a pop bumper. It's too complicated, you know. I remember one time, I don't know if it was at an expo or something, no, it must have been before that, asking people, you know, has anybody here ever taken apart a mixing and spotting unit from a bingo? Nobody. Nobody. You know? So it started out slowly. I think people were timid. There were a lot of collectors that collected games that did no circuitry. You know, they could kind of work on their games, but they didn't really understand circuitry. So it's true with all hobbies. The same thing happened with mechanical musical instruments, you know, automatic pianos and stuff. When people started realizing that, you know, Nickelodeons and things were worth having, there was no place to get parts. You couldn't get the fabric, you couldn't get the leather, nobody knew how to rebuild these things. It comes gradually as more people come into the field. Yeah.
So what year did you buy a house after you'd been at Gottlieb for?
Oh, what year? Let's see, I came to Gottlieb 72, about 77, I think.
Did it have a basement?
Yes.
Did you collect any Gottliebs at the time?
Well, I really couldn't use it was a semi-finished basement. So it was kind of a low ceiling. I would work down there, but I wouldn't keep the games in a damp thing like that. No, it had a 3rd bedroom, which was really a rather large closet. It was a small house, and I think I had about 6 games set up. That was my collection at the time.
Did you ever have one of his early flipper games?
I had a Humpty Dumpty. I think I had a Lady Robin Hood. Somehow I got that. I never restored it. It needed painting. I just never did anything with it. But we got a letter one time in engineering from a antique dealer in Kentucky. And he just wrote cold. And he said, I have a Humpty Dumpty that you might be interested in. And he wanted something like $700 for it. You remember this?
No.
Yes. It came to you and you showed it to us. He said, you got to be kidding. $700 for this old game. And I agreed, but I kind of wanted to have a Humpty Dumpty eventually because, for what it was. I'm never going to find one. And I wrote back and I said, essentially, you're crazy. There's no way you're going to get that kind of money for a game. And that was the end of it. And about 6 months later, he wrote me again, and he said, well, how about, and I don't like $250 or something like that. He really brought the price down. And I said, well, okay, all right, I'll do it. And he had it delivered. Well, he had it delivered to the house, to the apartment, because that's right, you never saw it. You never saw the game. No. And, it was rough. It needed a new back glass, which, of course, you couldn't do at that time. Funny thing about that back glass, I remember the paint on it was okay, except for the yellow. Just the yellow is flaking off. I wonder what caused that, And apparently they didn't understand how to unplug the light box from the cabinet, and they had cut the cable.
Oh,
just cut the wires at the plug. Yeah. So there was 2 cables. They just snip. Yeah. So
my, what a job.
And I had that for a long time, and I never got around to it.
Did you have to splice it, or was
the
cable?
I never did anything with it. I'm not sure if we could have soldered it. Just extended it, and soldered it.
You think you could get it? There was enough slack there that you could.
I don't recall. One thing and another came up, and that's when I got sick for a while there, and I never did anything with it. And I think I sold it to another collector. I think I traded it for something. I never did the job. Yeah.
Oh my.
That's the only Humpty Dumpty I ever had. Of course, Randy's got one, and I did some work on his. But yeah.
But you had a Lady Robin Hood?
No.
Oh.
No, I told you wrong. What the heck was that? 3 Musketeers or something? Something like one of the games in that era.
Oh.
And I don't know. I don't even remember where that came from. And again, I probably just traded it off.
A Harry Mabs game, you're thinking?
Probably. It was an early flipper game. Might have been.
Did you ever, when you got there and all, did you get to hear the story of the flipper invention and that whole?
Oh yes, indeed. I remember the story of Nudgy.
Oh,
the Nudgy thing. Yeah, that was a Bally game.
Story,
the Bally game came out just before Humpty Dumpty, and Bally had this thing where they had a play field that was on rollers. And you had a lever, and you could push the lever and bump the playfield, Actually, they would put that feature in a bingo game later on, Hi-Fi, that you had to pay for. I had to pay for that feature, but that was the idea of ball control. And I guess you guys were so worried.
We were very worried.
Because you were about ready to break this game, and you thought maybe there was actually a spy.
Yeah, sure did.
Yeah.
We sent Alvin out to California to see that game. And he called us up at just around dinner time, just before lunch, and we had the word, that it was what Nudgy really was, and we were so relieved, and we laughed, and we were just elated, the whole group.
That it wasn't flippers, you mean? That it wasn't flippers.
Yeah, we were just elated that it wasn't copied, that nobody let the cat out of the bag.
So before that, the flipper idea was in progress, and you were.
Well, yeah, you have a lag of maybe 6-8 months or a year.
Yeah.
Before, from the time it was designed to the time you're ready to go ship it out the door, and all that time we were all aware of the flipper, and we didn't want it out in the street, otherwise someone would beat us. If you put a full court press on a game, you could get it out in a month or so. But if you put it in a natural sequence of things, it takes about a year.
Yeah, yeah.
But very few people knew about it. You kept it a secret.
Only our inner group, you know, engineers and
Was
the
Dave-
factory. Of course, nobody in the factory knew anything about
Well,
it.
because of what happened with Nudgy, from that point on, engineering was kept locked, right? Isn't that what
Well,
impelled you to lock the engineering department?
I don't know what really caused us to lock the door, but we all carried our key on a
Yep,
chain.
yep. Key, yeah.
That was a nuisance, you know. It's,
Well,
But I
And
never,
it had
I
to
never
use a
heard
key.
that before.
Pardon?
Never heard you say that before. So.
but the department was locked, you mean?
Well, and that they were trying to protect anything they were working on. There.
well, and just to keep people from walking in and out.
Yeah.
You know, people come in. The door was locked. We were on Coster Avenue, particularly. That's when we had the flipper. The door to the street, and where the help came in and out was right at our door into the engineering room. We were within
Yeah.
20 feet of the front door, and so everybody went past our door, and the time clocks were on each side of our door, as I recall. One on each side, and the cards for the people. So everybody went past our door, coming in and going out. So
Yeah.
if the door was open, well, they could look in and see what we're doing. And
Did you help build prototype of the flipper games of Humpty Dumpty? Were you help tinkering and assembling a prototype of that for Harry with Harry in '47 there or '46?
before, Harry was building his game.
Did
Well,
you help? Did you
were you-
help?
you
him?
were-
I was turning the crank for him when he made the flipper.
Turning the crank.
Yeah, well, I was drawing the circuit up for him, I think it was at the time. I was sitting at the drawing board, and when he was fiddling around with that flipper, you know, and he didn't know it was a flipper, but he didn't call it that, you know. There was no name for it. It was just a
bat? What did you call it? What did you call it? You had to call it something.
Yeah, he had that plastic piece that became the flipper, and he was he built a rollover. He'd cut a slot for a rollover switch, and that's the only thing on the board was that one hole for this flipper switch, and he built the rubber around it so that the ball would go in and come across, and then he had the flipper, and he was going to have that switch that he made the slot for.
So it wasn't controlled by the player then.
No, and it was going to kick it automatically.
Okay,
see.
yeah.
But he didn't have the switch in yet, so he had the two wires out here that he was going to put on the switch that he didn't have yet. And he put the ball there and he kick it up the board. Hey, this is fun, you know. This is fun. So that's
So
how
it was
the
an
flipper
accidental invention almost.
Accident.
Yeah.
Sure, it was accidentally. And,
Who invented the buttons? Who came up?
well, Harry did that. Sure.
He did that.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, and then
that just progressed, and he put one on the other side, and then he did that. But then
But had those buttons existed? Were they used for some other purpose, and then just
no,
so you had to have them machined and
Yeah.
made, and they were metal in the early years,
they
right?
were metal. Yeah, first one made was metal. Yeah.
So
And then he, of course, he used a weak coil, and he could only kick that ball up the field maybe 12, 14 inches. So that's where he put another pair up there, and then another pair.
Yeah.
And he boosted it up, you know.
So originally he hadn't even thought of the idea of 6 flippers.
No. In fact, there was no even thought of one flipper until he fooled
Well,
around.
yeah,
Then he got the 2 down there, and then he added the other 2, and then he added the
Yeah.
other 2. And
Well,
then
the
he built the
idea,
game around
the
it.
idea there, of course, too, the play field is still laid out like a pre-flipper game. So the idea is to just more or less to keep the ball from coming down too fast, to keep it boosted up. You weren't
Yeah.
really shooting for anything; you were just keeping the ball in play.
Keeping the ball in play.
Yeah,
Keeping
yeah.
the ball up out of the out hole. That's all it was meant to do.
Yeah,
And it evolves from there.
yeah.
And then people had to learn how to use it.
You know,
So was David Gottlieb quite excited about this?
Yeah, what did he think of
very,
it?
very excited. Yeah. In fact, we made the game, and it was called Flipper.
Uh-huh.
And the original game was Flipper, and we had I can almost see that game, and we had it in the engineering room, and we engineered it and got all the test fixtures and everything all set to go, And on this one Monday morning, Dave come down and he come tearing in, and he was all excited. We're gonna call it Cinderella or Humpty Dumpty, and we'll have a new glass. And he calls Parker in, and he said, but we the game need lax a little something, and we all thought it did. So then we added a feature in the game that the 4 letters A, B, C, and D was added in, and it was in. You had to get it in sequence.
Right.
You get the A and then the B and the C and the D, and you're not going to believe this, but on the bank that had the relay bank, we wired across that relay bank a series of switches to show us that it was all down, and we also which was unnecessary, and so we built because it wouldn't actually when the 4th relay went down that did.
Oh, because it was sequential, because it
Yeah,
was
sequential.
rotation. Yeah, you only needed it on the 4th.
You didn't need
Yeah,
the 4
yeah,
switches.
yeah.
So we built maybe a couple hundred games with all those switches across there.
Hey,
And
that
all
would be
of it-
interesting to look for that.
And all of a sudden, one of us, whoever it was, woke up to the fact we put 3 switches in there we don't need.
Yeah.
And we took the 3 switches out, right in the middle of the run.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. That was a change made during the run.
And
Yeah.
we didn't make many changes during the run.
Yeah.
But that's one change we made that I can remember.
Uh-huh.
Wayne, you went to trade shows or where they exhibited the new games. Were you part of the introduction to Humpty Dumpty?
Well, they didn't break it at a trade show, right?
No, it wasn't. It didn't go to a trade show. It didn't. It's not the way it came out.
It just showed up on the market.
Yeah. 'Cause who knew? Nobody knew it was going to be that great. We thought it was, but we didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I was wondering.
They turned the industry upside down.
Yeah.
But then they didn't use the word flipper. It went to Humpty Dumpty, and I always liked that word flipper.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I made the first Atta-Ball game,
You got your revenge.
I insisted flipper is going to be it, and every game after Atta-Balls were all flipper clown, flipper this, flipper that,
Yeah.
because of Harry Mabs.
Did he name it Flipper? Did he say that word or
Harry did.
Harry did?
Yeah.
He said this thing is a flipper.
Yeah,
It flips
he
the
called
ball.
it a flipper. Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Wonder what else he could have called it. A flapper.
Or a bat.
A bat.
It looked more like a
bat,
bat. It behaved like a bat.
well, actually, it is a bat.
Yeah.
It's just like the Western baseball bat. It's
Yeah.
the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, same thing.
And single stroke.
Yeah, simple stroke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I don't think he was too excited about it at first, and
That's surprising. You would think that he invented something so momentous that he would have the vision to at least imagine this was going to be some kind of a changer, especially when the idea of the buttons came along.
Yeah,
when they had player control now.
Yeah.
That was a real changer.
Yeah, that was a changer.
Yeah.
Harry was a great designer.
Tell us a little bit about meeting him and how you trained up and what kind of guy he was.
Harry Mabs?
Yeah.
Well, I knew Harry Mabs from Western Equipment and Supply Company. He was a designer, so-called designer at Western, and Western had 5, 6, 7 designers going all the time, and none of them knew what they were doing, and each one copied from the other one.
Yeah,
It was a mess. And of course, in those days, everybody's looking for a job, and everyone was a designer, so Jimmy would hire whoever he could find, I guess, and Harry was one of them. And I don't think Harry designed any game that Western actually built. I don't believe he did. Now, he might have. But then they needed a shop foreman, and Harry got the job. And Harry ran the shop then. And of course, I was working under him because I was in the shop too. And then he brought his son in, Bud Mabs. You ever hear of Bud Mabs?
Well, you've told us. Yeah, go ahead and tell
Bud
about
Mabs, he was a little, he was my age, and we palled around together, him and I. And he was a little wild, and I was a little tame, and we made a great pair together. And Harry loved to have us go out together on Saturday night because he knew I'd bring Bud home, in the sober condition.
Were a good influence on him.
Yeah, so yeah, but Bud was a character, and he was a character, and that was good. But Harry was the superintendent, and then they went broke, and Western went broke and closed up the shop, and Harry was, of course, laid off, and then he ended up at Gottlieb's as a designer, and.
Well, but now, have you ever heard Dave Gottlieb hired this guy that had no successful designs put in?
Well, in those days, who checked on who? He could have told Dave anything. Nobody knew it. It was.
He might have brought a little portfolio. Did he have?
No. There's nothing like that at all. No,
Well, all Dave had to do was ask him a few questions about games and say, "Well, I believe you worked there." That was about all.
Well, like when I went to Gottlieb, they said, "What did you do?" And I said, "Well, I did everything. I can do anything. I can test playboards. I can run cables. I can do anything." But there was no proof. I had nothing to back my statements.
You used the right words, probably.
And
was there a chief designer before Harry Mabs, or was it
at Gottlieb?
At Gottlieb.
I don't think so. Everybody was copying everybody at that time, and I'm sure they were just copying whatever was successful on the outside.
But David Gottlieb himself helped design some of the games, did he?
Well, I don't think so.
No,
I don't think he had no ability at all. I don't think.
He was a businessman.
He was a businessman.
Yeah. So at Gottlieb you had this team of designers, but no leader.
There was no team. I mean, at Western.
No, at Gottlieb when you came.
No, there was no designers at Gottlieb. Only Harry.
Oh.
He was the only one when I came there.
So then you tell us about learning from him and what that was like.
Yeah.
Well, I got the job of helping everybody, and I worked in the shop. I even helped build the triple grip that Gottlieb was so famous for, and I just fill in and help build the grip for like 2, 3, 4 days, and then I go someplace else and help somebody else out, and finally I'd get in to help Harry out, and I would either solder up something that he had laid out already, or I'd draw the circuit for him, because Harry wasn't very good at drawing a circuit. He didn't have the patience. Not that he couldn't do it, but his patience was
to do the drafting. You mean to sit down at the board?
What kind of guy was he? Was he a jokester? Was he?
Yes, he was.
He was a good mentor, and you got along immediately with him.
Oh yeah. Fantastic. We got along just great together, and we were friends all my working life.
And he must have. Well, I'm sure one reason he liked you is because you could do so many things, so you never said no.
I could help anybody. I help everybody out. That was my job. I helped.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'd be in the engineering room making test fixtures or drawing a circuit up or whatever. But mainly for Harry, I'd draw circuits, and then sometimes I'd wire up the game for him, because he'd come down in the morning and say, "Oh, I got the greatest idea in the world, and take this game and shove it aside." That's it.
On to something else. Onto something else.
Onto something else.
Yeah.
And now I don't want that one anymore. I'm going to do this and
a little unfocused.
He's unfocused.
So you finished up his stuff.
I finished up a lot of his stuff.
You came along at the right time. Or
You
maybe,
did, yeah.
I mean, Dave would have maybe fired him or something.
Well, he could have, he could have. But Harry was not only a prankster. He pulled all kinds of jokes, but they work on him too. They kid him, and on Costner Avenue, there was a lot of rats running around in the factory, and at night we'd be working in the dark. At night we'd be working 5, 6 o'clock, and it's dark outside and dark in the factory, and just the light in the room where Harry was working, and there's always somebody with us making noise behind the wall, There, rats in there, But but Harry was a storyteller, great storyteller, and
He had a wife and kids?
he had a wife and a son, and I think he might have had a daughter, but she don't seem to ever be in the picture. I think she probably went with the first wife.
How much older than you was he? What was,
Oh, he was quite a bit older.
like 20 years older than you?
Oh yeah, maybe more. Yeah, because his son was, well, say I was 20 at the time, then his son was 20.
Yeah.
And so he was 45, 50 at that time.
But did he seem kind of like an old guy to you? Or
Yeah, he seemed like a father to me. And he treated me like a son, you know, and of course Bud Mabs and I were, you know, pelled around as much as we could together. But Bud was a character. He was a lot of fun.
On the wild side.
Oh, wild.
Yeah.
You know, him and I were working one Saturday, Bud and I, and nobody else was there. I don't know why he and I were there, but we were both there, and Jimmy had a scooter, one of these.
Like a motorcycle?
Like a motorcycle,
scooter?
yeah, a motorcycle scooter with it had an engine in it, and you know, you sit on and ride it like you got.
Yeah,
probably.
probably, yeah.
Yeah, and Jimmy used to ride that thing up and down the aisles, you see, and he was a character. There's so many stories I can't remember all of them, but anyway, he had this thing, you see, and then alongside of the building we had a parking lot, and that was all cinders. No concrete or gravel or anything. It was cinders. And Bud says, I'm going to take that thing out for a ride.
Oh.
He gets on this thing, takes off out that door and around that parking lot and zooming around, and dust is flying, and he falls off the motorcycle and gets it all off the bike and gets it all scratched up. You know, oh God, he said, when Jimmy sees this, he'll die. And so he brings it back in and sets it where it was, you know, and we don't know nothing about it. And I don't know, Jimmy never said anything. I never heard another word about it. So I don't know whether Jimmy ever noticed it or if he just figured to ignore it or whatever.
Maybe he knew what happened all along. Maybe he saw it happen or something.
I'm sure he knew,
you know,
something happened.
Yeah.
One of us guys took it out.
Well, isn't this is the same Jimmy Johnson that during a full workday fired off a pistol down the aisle?
Well,
wasn't that?
Yeah, that's the same Jimmy Johnson.
That's the same one. Yeah, just for fun.
Well, no, it
Just
wasn't
see if you could hit that
exactly-
trash can down there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
what became of Bud?
Bud eventually went in the Army, and he was in the Army for quite a few years. And then he came out and became an electrician. And the last I heard, he was an electrician at the convention center in Chicago.
Oh. McCormick?
McCormick Place.
Oh.
You didn't keep in
McCormick
touch
Place.
with him?
Pardon?
You didn't keep in touch with him?
No.
Oh.
Once he went in the Army, I lost track of him.
Yeah.
Just whatever Harry told me about him, which wasn't much, because Bud was.
He must have settled down. He became an electrician for McCormick.
You know, the Army has a way of settling you down
Yes.
after a while. You know.
Yeah.
They could take the wildest one and tame him down. But Bud was he also, just before he went in the Army, he joined the Chicago skaters, and he was a roller skater. And that was a
Roller derby.
roller derby, yeah.
Yeah.
And he was tough and big and strong, and I went down to see him many nights, and he could hold his own with anybody.
Sounds like a perfect job for him, huh?
Yeah, he would give him an elbow. Nothing could slow him down. He was tough. He Harry was tough too in his own way.
Now, Bud must have been bigger and taller than Harry. Wasn't Harry fairly short?
No, Harry was
Average?
I'd say he's taller, as tall as I am, maybe taller. A couple inches, maybe an inch or two taller than me. But Bud was a little taller and bigger and heavier and stronger.
And the idea to build College Days, was that just purely your own? You said, I want to tinker around and try to make a game? Or did somebody suggest you should try making one?
Oh, no one tells you to do anything. No, my job is to make test fixtures. And that's my job. And making test fixtures, you understand that you make them, and you got the game ready to go, and you got it all written up, and it's all set, and you got nothing to do until the next game comes along, and you either go and help somebody else. You know, you can't just sit there. You got to do something.
Yeah.
So I'd go over and help Harry, or I'd go and help Bob, or Doc, or Frank, or somebody, and because I never loafed in my life, and so I just got the idea. We'll build a game someday just for the heck of it, you know. I've got this cabinet set it alongside of my bench. I had the long bench for myself, and I set the cabinet up against there and put a blank board in it, and I put a few posts on it, whatever, and then of course now I have to go back and work on my test fixtures. So a month later, well, I go back and add a little more to it, and this went on for I'd guess a year, and finally got it done, and then played it. And
but you were lucky to work for such a family-oriented, benevolent kind of company where they didn't constantly keep an eye on you, and they figured you were doing your job, and so you had access to tools. And a lot of companies, you know, it's like, what's this guy doing over here? That's not good.
Well, you know, all my life I've been that way. That
but your company,
I never had a real job, you know. I never had a responsible job, you know. I always helping somebody.
You had an aunt that thought that, right?
Yeah, and like building those test fixtures. You know, you think, well, that's a responsible job. Well, it is, but when you're done with it, you know, what are you going to do?
Well, like in my case, I usually had something else to do. He was like that with me too. We needed direction. We all needed some kind of direction, you know, especially by that time. But you would never say to me, no, don't waste time building a play field.
Yeah.
Or, you know, nobody ever said that to me.
You don't have to.
Yeah.
You're on your own and you do your thing, and we were all that way.
We always had enough to do. We were all busy.
We didn't loaf around and goof off, you know. We were working.
Yeah.
When John was working for you, did you have weekly staff meetings?
No. We never had a staff meeting.
No.
It was all quite informal and
Very informal.
Your meetings were every day at lunch, because all you guys sat at one table in the lunchroom. That's when you chatted things over.
Upper echelon all got together.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That
so
was your staff.
give us the name off the people that sat and had lunch together.
Well, there was Dave Gottlieb. We start with him, and Nate, and Sal. When he was in town, and Sal traveled a lot.
This is the three brothers.
Those are three brothers, yeah. And Mandel, and Bob Smith, and Tony Gerard, and Frank Underhill, Doc, myself, of course, and
big round tables or rectangle?
no, it was a rectangle.
Oh,
rectangular table.
Did
And
everybody have their own
on
seat?
Costner Avenue, it was
Yeah, this is on
rectangular.
Costner, right? Yeah.
On Costner Avenue, it was rectangular. When we went to North Lake, I think it was a round table.
There's several round tables in the room.
there were
More
several round tables.
egalitarian.
Pardon?
Yes.
More egalitarian.
Yeah, whatever.
Well, they still all sat together though.
Yeah, no. Okay, now I'm gonna edit. That part was good. We'll save that forever. But now, when you name off the people, will you tell what their job was? Even David, you know, owner, manager, runner of the company. What Nate, Saul. Do you mind doing that?
Oh, sure.
So when you name these people, for the record, we know what their job was with Gottlieb, because that's the first time we've ever really.
Yeah.
This would be the bunch that laughed at you when you said 10,000 games.
Yeah,
right?
that'd be the bunch. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So here,
Well, but that was in North Lake, of course.
That was
later
on.
That's
later on. But
yeah, but okay.
but
No, this will be just the who sat at a table and had lunch together and what their.
At Costner Avenue.
Sure.
Yeah.
At Costner
Start with
Avenue.
that.
See, that's when Dave was there. Now, as soon as we got to North Lake, Dave was no longer a fixture.
Well, then you can give. Okay, so we'll tell who would be eating lunch together at Costner Avenue, and then at your new plant.
All right, well,
right,
Yeah,
we can do
just
that.
a good bit of history.
And I'll do the same
you know?
thing.
All
'Cause
right,
I
yeah.
sat at a table.
Yeah,
I sat
help
at
me
a
out
different-
here because
Well, I sat at a different table. I sat with people.
yeah, but you all knew everybody.
Sure,
and so
sure, I know.
Oh,
Sat
so
with
while
you.
you were there, you didn't have lunch with Wayne?
Well, we were all in the same room, but you know,
Yeah.
he had that table, and then there was like 3 or 4 other tables that other people were sitting
Oh, okay.
at.
So let's start with the early.
And at Costner Avenue, we had a long table, and we were a smaller company at that time. We didn't have
Yeah.
many people, so we didn't need as many places to sit. But I would guess there was 4, 8, 10, probably 10 seats at this table. So let's name them all. First and all was Dave Gottlieb. He was the president, and he owned the company, and he was always there, and he never went out for lunch, never, and we as a group never went out for lunch. Well, other companies, lunches were a big thing, and
Yeah.
they would go out together, and the different companies would even come together and have lunch. But at Gottlieb we were loners, I guess. Dave Gottlieb, he was the owner and manager. Then there was Nate Gottlieb, the brother, and he was a sales manager. Then there was Sal Gottlieb, and he was a representative of the company in the field. He would go out in the field, and then he would come back, and he would be there in our office for maybe 3 or 4 days a week, maybe 10 days, and then he would go out again. And then we had Alvin Gottlieb, and Alvin became
He was Dave's son. He was Dave's son.
Yeah, Dave's son. He was the son of Dave, and he had various jobs to do. One of them, I guess, was he helped design all circulars that were made, and he worked around the office and the engineering room, and he just kind of floated around the place. We had Bob Smith, chief engineer, and we had Roman Garbark, who was our head draftsman and chief mechanical engineer, and we had Frank Underhill, who was a engineer, and myself, and I don't know what I was, but I was there too. And then there was
And this was after Harry Mabs had left.
and there was no, Harry was still there. Harry Mabs,
Okay.
he was our designer, and our
How about Tony? Was he still there?
and Tony Gerard, our superintendent, was there, and that's about fills it out.
That big table.
That filled it out, and we had our cook there, who cooked fabulous meals, and we
What
all
were some of your favorite meals?
well.
She was a good cook.
I'd be better off to name the ones that weren't my favorites.
Would she
Yeah,
do? Was
she
she
was-
a local gal? Was she Polish or something?
Oh yeah, she
German.
was something.
She was German, wasn't she, or
Oh, it's-
Austrian or something?
Probably in that area, German, Austria.
Yeah, I don't think she was
Yeah.
Polish. She was German speaking.
Polish, some in that area, but she was a fabulous cook. And I go home at night and tell my wife what I had for lunch, and she'd just about die, And she said, well, "How can you eat again?" I said, "I don't know, but I can.
Yeah,
I'm still
yeah.
hungry." But our cook was fabulous, and she was with us for a long time. And
Did
then
she
once
make meatloaf?
meatloaf, yeah, she made meatloaf, but she made roast beef, and once in a while she'd make lamb, and everybody would cry, "Oh, I can taste the wool in my mouth," and all this,
jeez.
Were you one of them?
No, I don't remember lamb, but I like lamb. I'm sure it would have been great.
And
Yeah.
she made cherry cheesecake, and she made quite often, and I wouldn't eat cherry cheesecake. I don't like cherry cheesecake.
No.
So one day she says to me, "Wayne, you got to try it." I don't like cherry cheesecake. "Oh, you try it." So okay, so I took a piece, and I said, "Boy, this is good. This is good." I go back for seconds, And she appreciated my compliments. I
Yeah.
compliment her.
Did the Gottliebs keep kosher? Were they kosher in their? Did you ever have sausage or ham or anything?
Yes.
Bacon?
Yes.
I don't recall.
She would serve Thuringer,
Yeah,
sauce. That's the first time
sausage,
I'd ever heard of it. Oh
yeah.
yeah. That's right. I never hadn't really thought of that. Yeah.
So the Gottliebs or any, yeah.
I guess they.
And she always made soup.
Yeah.
She always had a kettle of soup.
Yeah.
And boy, that soup was delicious. That
Split pea, vegetables.
everything. And I
barley.
tell you, you couldn't go wrong with a bowl of soup.
She could cook anything,
Oh, she's fabulous cooking.
including the liver and onions.
Now let's move into the later years in your new factory.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
when we moved to North Lake, we had a bigger dining room, and of course we had more people. We had a lot of engineers and designers and whatnot, and
Mm-hmm.
But
Our
the,
friend here.
the table that you would eat at before
Yeah,
John
yeah,
came
yeah.
up, who
Yeah.
would be at that table on the?
well, we had a round table with about I would say sat maybe
or so.
six,
Yeah.
7, 8, maybe. I think
I
probably.
think 6 maybe. It was,
Yeah, 6 to 8.
Yeah.
So
People.
name them. Who was there?
Well, there was Dave Gottlieb was no longer a factor, and he had deteriorated to the point where he never ate with us. But there was Alvin and Judd, who now has entered the company.
Yeah, explain.
Judd Weinberg.
explain,
He
yeah.
was now the president of the company, and so he was the number one man. And then of course Alvin. There was Mandel Skybell, a purchasing agent. There was myself, Bob Smith, our superintendent at the time. Let's see, who else could have been
Cliff.
there? Who?
Cliff.
Cliff. It was
Cliff Strain.
Cliff sat with us.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he was in sales, was it?
I think sales.
Oh.
I remember him being in
Yeah,
sales.
something. And then we had this.
Wasn't Bill Kohler with you?
Yeah, I was going to say we had a purchasing agent, Bill
I think it must
Kohler.
have been Bill. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's about
That's
6,
it.
7
Yeah.
people. That's about what sat around the table.
You know, sometimes Mandel wouldn't be there, Nate wouldn't
Yeah.
be. They were in and out because they were
Yeah.
getting up in years. They weren't around every day.
And so who did you have lunch with?
I sat with Doc. Doc had graduated to my table. I guess
Yeah.
he wasn't at like he was at on Costner. I sat with Doc. I sat with John Potempa, who was an engineer. He was in he helped in layout, playfield mechanical layout work. Remember him? Remember Potempa?
I don't
He worked for
remember.
John Romano, and he was brought into engineering.
John Romano.
Yeah, he
Well,
was
that's
a
in
tool,
the back.
He was in
He
a
worked
tool.
in-
He was a tool room guy, and
Yeah,
he came in to help. I don't know if he was there in Frank's time, but I think he helped Ed. He did layout work, and
I think that must have been a later time.
maybe I sat with Roman Dublin. He was in purchasing,
Yeah.
and I sat with Judd's chauffeur, whoever that was, because he went through several chauffeurs.
Yeah.
You know, and there was a Bill, there was an Ed, and I would sit with the chauffeur, and that's all I can remember.
Did Judd not drive, or he just liked to be?
He came every day in a limousine,
Yeah.
and it would be chauffeur driven. Yeah.
And I'll tell you a little story about that. That was about the time the seatbelts came in. And there was a law that you had to wear a seatbelt.
Yeah.
And Judge says, I'll never wear a seatbelt. Never. They can't make me wear a seatbelt. And I don't know if he ever did. I never seen him put a seatbelt on. I don't think he put one on even to today.
He had a custom plate on that limousine. He just had his initials. Just a JW. I don't forget what his middle initial was. I don't remember if it was 2 letters or 3 letters, but I mean it was just JW or J something W. Yeah, and that reminds me about Alvin's car. He had a Mercedes convertible that he had bought, and he got a custom plate for it that said Tilt. Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was great. He took it to the airport. He took it to the airport one time. It was stolen out of the airport, out of O'Hare. So, 3 months later, he's got another Mercedes, new plate, tilted. Yeah, that was Alvin.
We were all jerks.
Did you ever eat lunch with Eddie?
I don't know where Eddie sat.
Boy, that's a good one.
Yeah, I don't know.
I know there were a couple of other tables there. I don't.
He didn't sit at my table.
No, it wasn't with you guys.
No.
Is that kind of how standoffish he was? He didn't.
I think he would have eaten. He would have eaten lunch.
He was always withdrawn.
Yeah, but he wasn't. I think he would have been with us someplace.
Yeah, but I don't remember 'em.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't
Isn't that
that
strange?
fun?
That's
Yeah,
strange.
that
I
is
don't-
funny.
I can't place them in the lunchroom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
Maybe his wife made great sandwiches. And
No, no,
Yeah.
no. He ate with us.
Yeah. And
What-
it
what-
cost us money. It cost us $2 a week for this large S. Yeah. $2 a week.
Yeah, didn't I go around collecting all that
Yeah.
$2?
Yeah.
each
I remember
month go
sometimes
collect the
I had to struggle to raise that in the early days. Sometimes I'd bring you, like 20 dimes or something.
Yeah.
But you did start off at $10,400
Yes.
in
Yeah.
1972.
72.
That
Mhm.
was not a bad
It
income.
was not bad. No. No.
Was he overpaid or underpaid, or what did you think?
I think he was underpaid. Underpaid.
Well, for the moment,
Yeah.
I remember when Christmas came around, you gave bonuses, and I'd only been there 2 months or so. Started in September, Christmas time. I didn't expect anything. Geez, I just started. I didn't even know where things were. I got a $25 bonus.
Wow.
I mean, that wasn't a great deal of money at the time. I mean, it was enough to matter, but just the fact of it, the fact that you guys gave me something,
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
my first Christmas, what I got for a bonus
Yeah.
at Western Equipment and Supply Company, I got a jar of pickles.
Did Jimmy sign the label?
Well, actually, it wasn't a jar of pickles. It was 6 jars of pickles. They were about 6-8 inches high and about 2 inches in diameter. And there was one had little pickles in, one had cucumbers, one had olives, and one had something else. But 6 in a little carton like this.
Did he
But
give
during
that to
the
everybody?
Depression-
Everybody.
Yeah, but during the Depression, food was a good gift.
Well, I suppose.
I
it was.
guess so.
I was proud of it.
Yeah.
I didn't expect anything. I didn't realize that they gave Christmas presents to guys at work.
Yeah.
And when Jimmy handed me a box of pickles, I said, "Whoa, thanks!" Oh boy! I take it home. I remember putting it down on a dining room table, and my mother, boy, look at this, Mom! Look what I got for a present.
Yeah.
And she was all excited.
There was a lot of food there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, we didn't eat pickles, but we ate them, of course. But
No.
we would go to the store and buy pickles.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a luxury.
Sure, and olives. Who would buy olives?
Yeah. Yeah.
Set
All
here.
Wait, Whaley's going. Now, you ready? All right. We turn the game on first.
Turn the game on. Oh,
There.
gotta have the game
All right.
on.
There it
Can't
is.
play the game without being on. Okay, are you ready to go?
You go first.
You want to get whooped?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Listen to the reset. Okay, we're
All
ready
right.
to go.
Add another player.
Oh, we got 2
Put
players.
me in. Put me in. There we go.
That's all we want. 2 players.
Okay, yep.
You and I are going to play. And,
That's it.
And may the best man win.
Okay.
All right. This is for the championship of Mountain Home, Arkansas.
Good start.
We're right in that C. Never miss the C. And B. Oh!
Well, the game is cold. The game's cold.
Game point.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, let's see here. Oh, of course.
You're supposed to shoot C.
I'll take anything. Just don't run out. Okay. I'll run up some bonus here. There.
Oh, there you go.
That's it.
Oh, we got them all. You got them
Hey,
all.
yeah.
Extra ball.
Extra ball.
If you get in the hole.
Oh, okay, all right.
you have any mercy on me?
I gave you something to shoot for.
Oh, okay. See.
See. Good. Okay.
Now you got the
There's
shot.
the C.
C is the shot.
See you again.
Got it twice.
All right.
49-14. That's not very good. You have to bear down.
I don't even have any games this new in my collection.
Missed my C shot.
Good.
Get back past that post.